on Tuesday's agenda? Excellent, thank you. All right, topic C, OPT transit working supervisor.
You want me to?
I can. So we're looking to reestablish the position of transit working supervisor.
Okay.
I think it was like October or November, we had hired a transit coordinator, and we knew this was a Band-Aid, so to speak, to get us through. I do have a benefited full-time position driver that has not been filled, so I would like to bring back the transit working supervisor title and fill it with that.
So this person would not be driving,
Would be occasionally.
occasionally driving.
This person would be more supervisory, 19A stuff, Gen Fair, working with the TVM, training, be doing all the stuff that our transit supervisor used to do. And now, to be honest, I'm doing it.
Okay.
And it's quite a bit of a workload.
Okay. So are you thinking like part-time driving, part-time working supervisor, or something like
well,
20?
I can tell you right now that it takes almost a year and a half to get the 19A certification.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of training, a lot of classroom stuff. Also, this person would be going to Chicago to Gen Fair school.
Okay.
We need to have a backup to our current technician. So we have to think ahead here and get somebody in this position, because we know that the person that we have in the transit coordinator will be out at the end of 24.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the workflow, like with it. I trust that you thought about that. I'm just trying to understand it so that
you have
I
something
know.
to add, Joe? or-
Well, can I just add a few things? I don't
Yeah,
know if it'll
please.
directly answer that, but it might help, and then if
Okay.
not, you can jump in and save me.
Yeah.
So just again to clarify, Dave mentioned, so this is a position we previously had. We had someone in, it was vacated because of a retirement.
Okay.
And that's when the transit coordinator position came up.
Okay.
The plan is, so we do have a current title in place. The plan, we are looking at making some revisions to that title, which we expect to go to the next Civil Service Commission for approval.
Okay.
So those will be changed. I think the goal there is to help broaden kind of the qualifications and maybe some of the duties as well. And the hope is to make it, to get the right person in, rather than just focusing on the qualifications, because, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm going to steal a phrase from Dave Corey, that this is the type of position that we make, we don't hire. So the person that gets in there, like Dave said, requires a lot of training. We really want, we're putting some investment into this person. We want to have the right person that we can kind of mold or build into this role, as opposed to just the chances of us being able to find the right person, just who's out there looking kind of thing.
Can I add to that just before you get off that?
Yeah.
And we tried that. We advertised for transit working supervisor, and that's why we had to settle on the coordinator position.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we had
we're
3
we wanna
unsuccessful.
try this again.
Yeah, get back to the way that it was.
Correct.
I guess my question is about the impact of losing the full-time bus driver position.
Okay, that's a good question.
Okay.
We've had that vacancy for 18 months, and we haven't filled it.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I don't tend on filling it. And the reason being is we have a lean time of year, which we're coming up on. You have 6 full-time employee drivers that you have to give 40 hours each to. We have all these part-time people that have worked all year, and now you're not giving them any work in the summer.
Okay.
So I would like to take those 40 hours and use them better for OPT than as a driver. We can manage, and it's more of being loyal to the people who are loyal to us all year.
Cool.
So
That's
that's the
helpful.
way I look at it.
Yeah.
I can jump in. So
Yeah.
another aspect from my perspective, like Dave said before, Dave spends too much time that he has to driving the bus, working on jet fire equipment, things that if we have this position filled, it takes a little bit more of the burden off of him that jump in. Just gives us a little bit more resilience, and also allows Dave more time to focus on, you know, bigger picture items that he'd love to have more time to spend on, so.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to answer my question.
So what would the jump in salary then be from the full-time driver to the supervisory position?
That's a good question.
Oh, shoot, sorry, I did not bring that. You have it, thanks. Honest revenue contract.
Greg, don't
Yeah.
call it up. I didn't.
I should have had that.
I,
ready,
well,
and
I didn't,
forgot
I
to.
didn't grab the grid, sorry.
I apologize.
While he's looking, as far as I know, unless something really unusual comes out of the title, you know, the changes we're making through the Civil Service Commission, it wouldn't be a change, so I'm sorry.
That's good. Bus driver, grade 4, 31,127. And a transit working supervisor is grade 11, 41,577. So roughly 10,000 difference.
So this year, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, because of the vacancies, they're probably not gonna be an issue with this budget here.
Okay, great. Okay. Hopefully I can read my notes to myself. But, okay, so that would be, does anybody have any other questions on that?
No.
Dave?
So we would be looking to move this forward to the next council meeting?
Not the next one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at this point, my understanding of the process
Or
is
we have
that
to wait for civil service?
we're gonna be going to civil service,
We'd like
and
to
then
wait.
once approved, because it's already adopted, I don't know, I'll check, but I don't know if council has to do anything further at that point, but then we'd be doing some, posting of the job, we'd have to go through interviews, and then we'd be bringing an appointment for.
Okay.
So we would likely come back to the finance HR committee with, once we have a.
Yeah.
A candidate.
Sure. Maybe.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks, I think that's really proactive. Thank you.
We're trying.
Okay, sorry. D, RFP award for the administrative services for privately owned lead water service replacement program. Hi, Judy.
All right, so we would like to take to council the award for the administrative services for our CDBG grant for the replacement of privately owned lead water services. We put this out to bid as an RFP. It went on BigNet, and we also directly solicited some MWBE firms. And we received one response from Toma Development, our grant writer. I was very happy about that. So this is entirely funded through the grant, 100%. Our grant budget for grant administration and program delivery is $37,000. The contract will be for $36,000 plus reimbursables not to exceed $37,000. So it's exactly what we have for the grant money.
Great.
And Toma's firm is very experienced in this kind of work. They wrote the grant for this, so
Okay,
I was pleased that they responded.
yeah. Cool. E,
The Oneonta Theater grant is a New York Main Street grant. In order to finish up the environmental review on that's required by the grant program. We need to hire a consultant to do a site contamination review. We have a proposal for $1,800 from Kenneth Teeter's firm. They're experienced in this type of work. They actually do this type of work on projects that our grant writer, Toma Development, works on.
I'm sorry, Judy, can you tell me how much again?
$1,800. This would be entirely grant funded. The reason it's a small amount, normally we could go with a PO, but the vendor provided provided an agreement for the services for us to sign, so we have to attach that to our agreement, so I have to come here, because Greg's not authorized yet to sign. So I just need to be able to have this go through council for approval of signing this agreement.
Okay.
He's coming out at the end of April to do the work.
Oh, so we better get on it.
Yeah, it goes through the 18th, we'll be good to go.
Okay. Okay, the seeker planting trees after Ashloss project.
Okay, so this is a state-funded project. We just got a grant for it for $40,016. Because it's state funding, we have to address seeker. So the project includes planting about 45 street trees in the River Street neighborhoods over the next 2 summers, and 12 apple trees at the Swart Wilcox site. So we'd like to have the council adopt a seeker type 2 resolution that no further environmental review is required,
Okay.
because it doesn't meet any thresholds, and the street trees are all on prior disturbed street right-of-ways, so that doesn't require anything with seeker. And the trees at the Swart Wilcox house are actually gonna be located where trees used to be, where an orchard used to be, so that also wouldn't require anything.
Okay,
So that's it for me.
all right, thanks. Okay. Thanks for your patience while I type it in. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Parking Strategies Task Force update.
It's not a long update, but I'm happy to have questions too. We had a meeting on Monday here in the council chambers. We invited, as well as the task force itself, we invited several members of the public, downtown stakeholders, who in particular had spoken out. Either they came to council or they sent letters or emails, or they've been on social media with a lot of concerns about the project. So we invited them to come and share their concerns and have a Q&A with them. So we had a long discussion. It was like 2.5 hours, at least.
It's like 2.5 to 3.
Yeah. So I think it was a good, healthy discussion. We didn't hear anything new that we had already heard, but we heard, directly from them and their perspective, and they were able to hear directly from us, which I think is what they were looking for in many of their cases. So that was important to do that. It won't be the last time we meet with them and others. We want to have more public outreach with other people as well. So there's only probably 10 or 12 people who are here. So those are to be determined. We might do like a bigger meeting where maybe we use the YMCA's gym or something. We invite, and try to get as many people as possible down, but that's to be determined. Our next meeting is hopefully going to be next week or as soon thereafter as we can, with just a task force to continue discussing our public outreach strategy, talk a little bit about using social media posts and things to try to dispel some of the untrue rumors or misinformation that might be out there, or misunderstanding, I should say, not misinformation, about what we're trying to do and why. So we need to talk more about that. I think the strategy seems to execute. And then I've been doing some research with some of the other staff into different parking technology that's available that helps implement paid parking. We'll start talking and reviewing that as a task force, and with the technology, as well as the technology, the strategy for implementation. How exactly is this going to work? Start getting into the nuts and bolts of it a little bit. And we might end up, as a result of that, our next meeting after that, we'll probably have a consultant come in via Zoom and talk more about that in depth, I would think, but to be determined. So we're moving along. Our time frame, our goal is to have a proposal recommendation to the council this summer. August was our original time, and I think we're still relatively on track for that. So that's where we're at, I guess, right now.
Okay.
Questions?
Greg, has there been any discussion yet about looking at the breakdown of 2, 4, 8, and all-day parking in the various lots that we have? Because that was originally, that and paid parking were the big areas that we were going to be having discussions about, because we knew with the deep street lots that they were going to have to be adjustments. Has that been brought up yet? Has there been any serious discussion on it yet?
Sort of. I mean, I think in our discussions have been focused on paid parking in the entire downtown area, including all the lots and the streets within, not the entire DRI also the option, this is part of the technology review, where you can have a scale, so, you know, if you're on Main Street, it might be $1 an hour for the first 2 hours, or whatever amount of time. If we don't want people parking there all day, then the third hour might be $2, and the fourth hour might be $3. So you could park there all day if you wanted to, you end up paying $20.
So you're thinking of, you're leaning toward not having designated hours and just controlling it through charging?
Easier to enforce that way.
Right. As far as residents, commuters buying monthly permits, we would designate certain areas, sections of lots or garage where the permit would apply. It wouldn't be a guaranteed spot, so if you bought a permit, you wouldn't have a spot or a particular number, and you wouldn't be guaranteed to have a spot, but let's say we said the bottom of the parking garage is all permits. It would depend on how much interest we have in that. We could say that, we could say a certain section of each lot, probably behind Keno, that area would be, you can park with a permit there, and park there all the time, 24/7, without paying a fee. And we would put those where we want them based on our understanding of towns. We probably wouldn't put very many in Westcott Lot, Wall Street Lot, although there is obviously demand there, because they're half full residents now. But we don't want to be, them to be half full residents, we would limit the number that the permits apply to, so that we have more in the best spots for shoppers. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, simply, we're not really looking at time limits, but trying to control it, which is how we price things.
I don't know that I totally agree that it's gonna be easier, because I think it's just gonna be different monitoring that we have. I mean, we won't be trucking tires, which that might be easier, but we're still gonna have somebody that's gonna have to go out much more than we do now to check,
Maybe.
yeah.
Hopefully not, with the
No.
technology that's available. That's all part of the cost analysis too, but you can put in sensors in pavement that register when a spot is occupied or how long. And then you couple
That's
that
good.
with, you know, it'd be perfect by license plate, it'd be by plate.
Right.
So your plate is either, you come with a permit registered to that plate, or you're going to the meter, or to your phone and inputting your plate, and you're in this, whatever zone you're in. So each block means zone,
That's true.
101.
And actually, I've seen that. I used that, I think it was in Canada. That's how I paid.
So then our parking enforcement
Like these.
officer would be able to look at tablet, phone, computer and see if there are spots on Main Street, we know those are probably not gonna be very often occupied for more than a couple hours. Usually most of them are 15 minutes, half an hour. So if you see a car that's been there for 3 or 4 hours, you know, that might be a trigger, let's go investigate that, and then check the license plate there, maybe someone has to pay. So you might be able to target your enforcement a lot easier with the technology that we just don't have.
Are we considering also, regulating the parking in City Hall parking lot a little bit
I
better?
think we have to do something, yeah.
I mean, we have, I know there's at least one car that's parked there all day that they do not work in City Hall. And that's been going on for years and years and years.
Yeah, I think we have to, I mean, especially if you rent a parking anywhere else now. There's
Yeah.
still free lot, and it's not regulated, and it's gonna be a bigger problem, so.
Yeah. I
the
mean,
lots,
that would be relatively easy, right, because you could do, you know, up to, well, no, I guess not, because you could do like up to 15 minutes, people would still go across the street here and stuff, I guess. Whether they were going there or here, doesn't really matter, because they're moving their car, but then you could have like 40 minutes.
I think there's options. I mean, we could even go with signage on every single spot saying, not allowed to park here unless you are, like, I don't know, like city council member or city staff, city hall staff, or, I mean, I think we have lots of options.
Yeah, I think the issue for me is like people who are coming to like visit the city clerk for
Right.
whatever, you
Yeah.
know, how do we allow for that?
Yep.
Because you can't like screen whether someone goes in this building or across the street, you can
Right.
only monitor their time.
and we don't really allow people to park all day in our parking lot. Park on Main Street or whatever else, so that we're not taking up all the spots where people come and do that. So I think if that's a little bit better managed, and then, you know, we also talk
They shouldn't have to pay for it.
Right.
I agree.
But if you're gonna park there, go across the street to Sal's for lunch or either for an hour, then
Right.
pay, so. And it would, theoretically, this would cost more per hour than the on-street space.
Would we
which
get
would-
like a little,
they're
I think it
actually
should be a
a
lot
lot
more. Because there's been so many times that we've come here for meetings and we've all seen this.
oh my
where
gosh, I
There's no place
live
to
for the
park.
summer when I can just walk because it's impossible to rent. So I
Yeah.
usually park in the Westcott lot. So,
And, you know, a little weak, but that's fine, I mean,
sorry.
no, it's fine, I just don't wanna go forever, you know, honestly, but we're looking at, which a lot of other places do, is have a Monday through Friday, excluding holidays, 8 AM to 6 PM, that's when we're parking.
Mhm.
So, having a council meeting makes them have that issue, or worry about, working on that, if they change the parking. So,
Okay.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Oh, was that meeting, it was here in Massachusetts, so it was, it was on YouTube?
no, we didn't
Okay.
broadcast it, I mean, it's a task force meeting, not a committee or
Oh, right.
board or commission, so we don't do that, but
Okay, bummer. I was really watching that. Okay, thank you, Greg, for that. Okay, so the next topic is something that I brought up. I know that, a lot of, every year we have a lot of discussion over our water and sewer rates and billing. We have done presentations, with the Waterworth program that show like how our rates are, scheduled to increase and compare and contrast that to our anticipated project costs. So that's all really lovely. I think what I would like to do, what I would like to get out of our conversation today is, every year when the water bills go out, I hear a lot of complaint and begins right at home with, the fact that we have an annual billing. And what I would like to try to do, to understand first, is what are the obstacles to having billing that is more frequent than annual? Because I don't think I fully understand. Yeah, please.
Right, we have approximately a dozen customers that we bill on a monthly basis. Those are the large users, the hospitals, the colleges, the laundromats. We have about 65 that we bill on a quarterly basis. And then we've got about 3,800 that we bill on an annual basis. The code is written in such a way that you are determined when you get your billing based on the usage that you use.
Oh,
So to be able to actually change the billing process, we have to change the code,
okay, so that's step one.
okay? The second thing is that, right now, you can imagine, because we print, mail, collect, it's all a manual system right now. Except we do have the online option, and I'm very happy to report a lot more customers are using the online options this year. They have realized that an e-check, which costs $1.50 to process online, is almost the cost of a stamp and a check and an envelope and, or driving to City Hall to pay it in person.
Sure.
Because it's, 60 cents now for a stamp. So $1.50 at the convenience of their home, they're finding very convenient.
Sure.
So I'm glad to see the increase in the activity there.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that? Does the $1.50 go to the processing?
Yes,
Okay, so
Yes.
it doesn't go to the.
it doesn't go to us, no.
Okay.
It goes to the service that provides the service to the city.
Right.
Then,
So
And then-
I'm sorry, do we pay anything for that processor? Or just that $1.50?
no, how the processor gets paid is through the fees they collect from the users.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and what we're doing with Waterworth, and we just had a meeting, I want to say within the last month, with Waterworth themselves, and they know what our goal is, and unfortunately, we've known what our goal is, and we just haven't had the manpower and the staff and the hours to do it. But one of the assignments is going to be for one of the finance's new staff, Stephanie, is she's going to be putting an inventory together. We have to give Waterworth the inventory of all of the size valves that we have for all 4,000 customers that we have. We have to come up with 5/8 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 6
I
inch
just learned
valves,
about this too.
things like that. So
Yeah.
we have to give them the inventory, we have to
Okay.
give them the type of customer,
Okay.
if it's residential, commercial, college, hospital, that type of thing.
Okay.
So we have to get all of that data together.
Wow.
They will take that data, they will load it into Waterworth for us, then we're gonna come up with different scenarios. My prediction is that we're gonna come up with two fees. One is going to be we call a base fee, and that will be based on the size of the valve, correct? Am I saying it right, Greg, valve or meter?
It'll probably be based on the size of the service, so 2-inch diameter, 1-inch, 3/4.
Yeah, but is that the valve? The service is,
The pipe size.
yeah, so they'll, and we have to come up with scenarios as what we consider reasonable for the size of valves.
Okay.
Then, that base fee, I would like it to be divisible by 12, so we can bill the base fee on a quarterly basis. Then there'll be a second charge for water usage, and then we have to determine, is it gonna be a half a cent per gallon,
Okay.
you know, that type of thing. So it's going to be very logical, it's gonna be very data-based, and we're going to take into consideration not only our operations of our plants, but our infrastructure cost, our debt cost, and all of it in together. It's gonna be in a lot of analysis, which Waterworth is gonna be able to do for us.
Oh, good.
It's just going to be a process. The reason we don't bill on a quarterly basis now is because of the voluminous amount of work it is to produce the annual billing and to collect it. I would basically need another staff member, part-time, just to be processing the water bills on a quarterly basis. We are looking at technology, not at this moment, it will take a while, but we are looking at technology that's going to give us the options that we will be able to produce the bills electronically. People will be able to sign in to their account and get all of their water history and their bills and be able to pay it right there online that way.
Excellent.
That way, we won't have to print, we won't have to postage, we won't have to manually mail, manually collect. But that is in the future. That isn't gonna be something quick.
So can I ask why?
Because this entire upgrade, there's going to be a lot of different departments affected by it, and we have to make sure it's the product that we want. And so we're just not to the decision point yet. And then when we do that, the conversion itself will take time of getting all of that database into their new system. We'll have to collect email addresses from our customers and, you know, a different way of communicating. So it is a process.
Yeah.
So we may be doing manual quarterly billings while we're upgrading the software itself. And then I also want the council members to understand that cash flow is a big thing.
Yeah, I knew that was part of it. That's what I was thinking of.
So we get a majority of the customers paying by April 30th, which allows us to have the cash to pay for the water and sewer funds expenses until October, you know, because we do have a handful of them that pay from May 1st to October 31st. Then we also have a handful of them that have to get re-levied onto the next year's property tax bill because they haven't paid the bill. So do it on a quarterly basis right now would probably mean I would need another part-time person just to handle all of the collection process. And that's why we haven't done it yet. And then what we would like to do is on a quarterly basis, as I said, we bill 3 months of the base fee plus the water usage. And then we spread it out that way.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking into it a little bit today because obviously, you know, there are other municipalities out there who are billing on quarterly seems to be the most popular, which I think is fine
Yeah.
generally for
No,
users.
we are an anomaly even in New York State. There's not many municipalities that bill on an annual basis.
Yeah.
But when I do talk to the other municipalities that do on a quarterly basis, they have more staff. So,
Sure, yeah. I noticed that one of them, the town of Ithaca, they actually shut down, their website and they like won't take any payments or do like any transactions or whatever for the week after the billing is over, so that they can reconcile the accounts. So it sounds like they have a similar, issue of, you know, not having a dedicated staff member to that.
they
But,
don't know.
Yeah, I was just curious about, because I know that, well, so how would it impact the cash flow? Because I think that's my
The cash flow is because we will be getting, right now, the way the annual billing happens, all right, so let's just take, say everybody just gets charged the minimum, right?
Mhm.
So I'm just gonna do some quick math here. So it's $498 times 3,800 customers,
Uh-huh.
right? That's $1,892,000. We're
Yeah.
gonna collect the bulk of that in April.
Right.
Now I'm gonna divide that by 4. So that means I'm only gonna be collecting 473,000 for the, after, not until April. Then I'm not gonna collect another 473,000 until July. So that's what I'm talking about.
Well, is
cash
there a
flow.
discrepancy in the way that we spend those funds? Like, do we spend $800,000 in July, and that's why we need all that
Well,
one disbursement?
well, if you've got the bulk of your collection in April and May, that's normally when we get most of it, you're already 5 months into the year. So if the operating budget for, say, the water fund, and you gotta remember, this is water and sewer,
Yep.
right? So if you take the water and sewer budgets, say it's $5 million, and you're 40% into your budget, so let me take 5
Well, I
million.
guess that's my
Yeah.
question. Wouldn't regularly occurring cash influxes be easier to function for that department?
Once we got it up and running,
Yeah, there would be like a transition period.
the
where it'd be
transition
very-
period, yes.
Yeah.
And also what will happen to the customer is they're gonna have to get caught up for those people that go over the excess of the minimum, because right now, their minimum bill includes what I call the base fee,
Uh-huh.
and it also includes the first 37,000 gallons.
Right.
You have a number of customers in the annual billing. You've got about 1,800 of them that stay under the 37,000, but the other 2,000 go over. Those other 2,000 will have to pay their excess before the quarterly billing gets installed. So,
Okay,
because they're gonna have to get caught up.
Yeah. I guess the only way that I'm envisioning this rollout making any sense is if there were enough funds in the reserve in order to implement quarterly billing and then pay the reserve back.
What happens when a fund will go into a negative cash balance, because we pool our cash, the general fund carries them for a while
Okay.
until they come back into the positive.
Okay.
Because
That's good
we
to
don't
understand.
have separate checking accounts for every fund. It's
Gotcha.
all pooled into one.
That's surprising. It seems like a lot of work to keep track of.
No, to tell you the truth, it's less work,
It's easier.
because that way I don't have, 12 different bank accounts and 12 different types of checks and,
Okay.
so well, I eventually think it will work well once we get everything in place.
Okay. So what is your perceived timeline for this? I mean, obviously not 2023, right? And probably not 2024, but maybe 2025.
Well, Greg and I were, right, in the meeting that we had with Waterworth, we were gonna try to hit 2024, correct?
Oh,
Yeah.
for quarterly billing?
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. And, I mean, I think the other thing is, and I'm not prepared to speak about this because, it's not my thinking. But Len had mentioned something about the discrepancy in rates between residential and commercial being like very minimal.
He does not, let me back up.
No, that's okay. And I actually asked him to come to express his own point because I don't know it
I sent out an
fully.
email, which I will resend to you
Okay.
tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
And I explained to them that the way the scale works, would be, as you use more water, your rate goes up.
Okay.
And even though it appears on the chart that it's only a half a penny more from the beginning to the end, it compounds as it keeps going through the steps.
Okay.
And so I will send you that email.
Okay.
I've done examples of the math, and I show you how much it's costing for the larger customer versus the residential
For
customer.
this, so obviously they use more, but for the same amount of water, it's the same,
No,
right?
no. it's
There's
not.
a difference.
There's a difference.
Okay.
And that's what the math will show you.
Okay, cool. Great.
And,
I'll look forward to understanding that.
Yep, and then what I'm thinking is that once we switch to the quarterly, we have to educate the public, we have to give them time to realize that they're gonna, in the transition, they're gonna have to pay for the excess water that they used in the previous year, plus the current water that they're using this year. So we've
I
gotta,
think that's getting really hard for people, I mean, financially.
yeah,
So
and
I don't know if there's a way that we can.
we have to transition it.
Yeah.
And
Phase it.
that part we've gotta figure out.
Okay,
Because we don't want to like, oh, here you go, it's almost like a double bill.
right,
And so we've gotta figure that out.
yeah.
And also, just so you know, we have advertised in even in the bill itself, I say payment plans are
Yeah.
welcome. We can also take prepayments for people and payment plans for people. And even though that information's out there, and one year, I think it was during COVID, I actually wrote a letter that went out with each bill and explained to them, you are able to prepay your account, we will accept payments on a monthly basis. We have maybe 5 customers that do that.
Yeah, well, I
Out of-
think it's because you're paying into the void, right? Like, you don't know what your usage is gonna be. If you're billed, you know that you're paying.
But you know
for
you're
what
going,
you
but
use.
you know you're gonna get the minimum.
Right, I suppose that's true.
So, you know, even if they wanted to pay $20 a month, they could do that, but a lot of people don't do it. They've got the option. We also moved the billing up. We used to send the billing out in early April, and it was due by the end of April. You know, we would try to mail the bills like on March 31st. We have tried to move that up. This year, we got them out, I wanna say, mid-March, maybe like on the 17th of March, something like that.
Yeah,
And
it
then,
felt more like the normal time this
Yeah,
year.
and
Last
then-
year, it was like February, right?
no, and last year it was March 10th, we got them out.
I thought it was really.
And, but this year, just because of, different issues, it just took about an extra 10 days to get them out. And, but what I'm saying is that we give the customers those options, but it's a very few that actually take it. We do have about 50 customers that are on payment plans.
Okay.
You know, so that has been a good thing for some people. But we have a lot of them that pay as soon as they get the bill. We have a lot of them pay right on the very last day that it is due. And then we've got the customers that, you know, like a little bit more time. Also, the penalties are small. It's a $5 late fee for the first month, and then it's 1% per month after that.
Yeah, right. Okay, that was helpful. I'm interested to find out what the rate structure will be.
So what do you?
One of the websites that I looked at, and I forget who it was, I looked at a few, actually had the table like right on their website so you can understand.
And I
That was
believe
really
we,
helpful.
I think
learned
we
a
have our
lot.
tables on the website, don't we?
By way of the legislation, yes.
Okay, so, and then we, also, and I will tell you, one of Waterworth's recommendations, they've said it to me more than once, they think that we have too many steps in our water table.
Mhm.
That they're suggesting we shouldn't have more than 3.
Gotcha.
But we're gonna be looking at all of that, because the bulk of the money is going to be not on the water supply itself, but more as far as the base fee, based on their valve size.
Right, yeah. Okay, that was really helpful, thank you. It's good to know that we're looking at quarterly billing for 2024, that's something that I can share with people. Because I think that the amount of the bill is not really the issue. I know that a lot of times we've talked about like comparable, water charges, and that our charge for water is actually, water and sewer is actually really low compared to other places. But I think that it's just getting that one whopper bill, even if you're expecting it, that is just really challenging for people. So, I think that that will help a lot, even if the rate continues to go up, which I know it will. Yeah, so I appreciate you taking the time to help me understand that.
Well, in the meantime, I mean, what I've been, because this is not a new conversation.
No, it's not.
Right.
And what I've always told my constituents, until it's figured out, do what I do. It's like, you know what the minimum is, break it down yourself by quarterly and put the money in another sub-account in your bank or something like that. That way at the end of the year, because the biggest complaint I always get is it's a whopper of a bill. But if you set the money aside, it's not gonna hurt as much, I mean,
Yeah.
than if you hadn't planned for it. But
I mean,
you know what it is every year, the minimum is not necessarily going down, it's
It's never
slowly
going
creeping
down.
up. So,
I think that makes sense, but we're sort of asking, we're putting a pain point onto people, right? Like, we're asking them to do the work of budgeting that bill, that annual bill ahead of time, keeping it top of mind. And I think that if we can eliminate that pain point for people and take that off of their shoulders, that it's just, I think it's just better in general.
Well,
So I agree that that's a smart strategy, but I think that where you put the work is important.
it's not really
well,
work.
well, I was gonna say, I understand your viewpoint, but at the same time, I don't believe it's our responsibility to be everybody's accountant. And,
Right.
I
so,
agree.
you know,
But we're
and,
sending out a bill that, you know, is over $500, we send it out once a year. I mean, like, so for example, my homeowner's insurance, right, is in escrow. It comes out monthly, it happens. They don't send me a bill. I think that, you know, the more that we can make this like that, and that's not accounting for people, it's saying we're going to owe us this money, you know, we can collect it in the most convenient way possible.
no, and I agree, we're working towards that, you know, to do it quarterly. And I understand that, but I also understand that, they also have their property tax bill and their school tax bill, which comes out on an annual basis. And that's much larger than their water bill.
Okay.
So, but I sympathize, and I'm trying, you know, we are trying to do our best to improve the system.
Okay.
We support that goal, and
That's good.
and so in the meantime, we've given them the online payment options, the credit card payment options, the payment plan options, and the prepayment plan options. That's all we can really do at this time.
Yeah.
And as I said, some people have taken advantage of it, and
Yeah, I'm just kind of sick of hearing the same, you know, complaint year after year, right? It's just better will if we can start addressing those complaints. So it's good to hear that that is being done, and I appreciate that. And for me to have a better understanding of what is being done toward that end. Okay, does everyone feel complete on that topic? I know I brought it up, so I'm probably the one who would answer that question, but, so I had mentioned too that the other thing that I would like to begin to do is evaluate our fee schedule, in this space, well ahead of the budget process. And recognizing that, you know, many things aren't going to be cash positive in a realistic way. That makes sense, does that make sense to get that thought out of my head? You know, we can't necessarily charge the user exactly what, you know, it would cost to, for example, issue the permit. But, you know, can we look at it, individually, but then also as a big picture to see if we can move the, chunk of, income that we get from fees up just a little bit to be able to pass those on to, you know, people who are actually using these services versus, spreading them across the tax base to provide these services. So I think that the easiest way to do this is probably by like department, like theoretically, I know you two are always here anyway, but, you know, we may end up inviting like other department heads. Judy, I know sometimes you get the night off, so we try to do that when we can get here. Just to talk about the expenses incurred for some of these things, and just to get an understanding of, what is a reasonable fee to charge, you know, rather than moving incrementally or kind of saying like, oh, we haven't taken a look at this in a while, like just taking a comprehensive look. Does that make sense, like to go by which department these charges are emanating from?
And we do that during the budget process.
Mhm.
The fee schedule will go out to each department head, and we ask for their feedback.
Okay.
And I will tell you that, Chris Jacobucci and John Williams have been very active in updating, the fees for theirs. Steve Yearling in the code enforcement office has been very active updating those.
Okay.
Carrie coordinates her fees based on also the state schedule.
Okay.
parking tickets, ambulance fees, you know, so those have been updated, recently, you know, in recent years.
Okay.
We don't usually do a cost analysis, I think that's what you're looking for on it.
Yeah.
And the reason being is
And-
that,
It doesn't have to be anything
Right.
that is super in-depth or, you know, but it can just be a conversation for context to
Mhm.
understand, you know, what some of these things are costing the city. I think that would be helpful for at least me.
Why don't you do a cost analysis? I'd like to hear what you're,
Yeah.
well, the
Finish
reason we
the
don't
statement.
do the cost analysis is because if we actually, in many cases, actually charged a fee for what it actually cost, it would not be well received,
Sure,
because it would just be too expensive.
sure.
And then also, it's also, even though, let's just take, park permits, right, for the pavilion, right? We want to have the park permits there, so we have a schedule, we have control over who is using it.
Mhm.
But if we were to actually charge what it would cost to actually maintain the pavilion, we wouldn't have, or we would have very little usage of it because people
Yeah.
just wouldn't be able to afford it.
Of
So
course.
some of the fees are more for control and regulation
And I
instead,
think-
instead of covering costs.
I think that's a really great point, and so it's good that this is a conversation, because as someone who sits into the Parks and Rec committee, Pavilion is a great example, where maybe we don't necessarily charge, and I totally understand, you know, the thought behind that. I also know that from being in Parks and Rec meetings, that there are sometimes, excessive recovery costs that are, you know, not just maintenance of the
Right, right.
pavilion, but, you know, actually cleaning up afterwards.
Afterwards, right.
So having that conversation with you, just makes me really want to figure out a way to structure some sort of, you know, excessive cleaning fee.
but then you
It's a
get,
great example.
the only thing you have to be careful with that is how do you define what's excessive? Something like that, is it, I mean, who defines what's too much?
Well, also,
Yeah.
you know, a point was made to me on the last conversation that we had
It's
about this, is that,
There's-
how do,
It's never
how,
gonna be 100%.
right, how do we know
I feel like
when,
we have this conversation a lot.
right, and how do we know when the, situation was created? Was it created at the event?
Right.
Or was it created after the event was over and between that time and the time our parks people discovered it?
Yeah, and we
So,
talked about that all the
so,
time.
you know, so we just have to think of those different things when we're talking about this.
Yep, noted.
But no, we will, for example, one fee that I think we can institute, and the fire chief is very supportive of it, is right now, they have, they respond to a lot of, life support, I'm trying to think, life
Basic
support.
life support?
Hey,
No.
You know what, you know when, like, if
Life
somebody.
alert.
Life alert, thank you, I wasn't thinking of life alert
I
calls.
thought I came to that.
Right,
Yes,
I
yeah,
thought-
okay,
yes.
got it.
Quite often, people will have 911 as the first call.
Mhm.
Some families have family members be the first call and go help them. We are not charging for when the ambulances go out for those first alert calls. And that is something that we can do, and I think that is something that we need to look at and implement. Or, you know,
False fire alarms.
pardon me?
False fire alarms.
False fire alarms, different things like
I
that.
thought we already charged for false fire alarms, because we've discussed that in the past too.
It's been a conversation for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, there are some areas there that we are in discussion, we just haven't, finalized it.
Yeah.
I know also that as far as the discussions of changing fees or increasing fees, I mean, that's not a new topic, we've talked about this for years. I know what Mr. Merzig has always reminded us is we have to be careful with that, because you can't make a big jump when you're increasing fees, you've got to be able to justify it.
Right.
And so, I remember, it was like 8 years ago, and it hadn't been changed in a while, and we had talked about making a big jump, and we couldn't, because he said you could end up going to court and having to justify it, and the judge is not going to agree with you. So I think ultimately with this discussion, I think we should probably have Mr. Merzig here for part of it at some point, just so he's aware of where we're going and whether or not we're keeping within that window that we want, that we can keep in.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think by virtue of the conversation, similar to how we made that change in the U zone, by virtue of having the conversation that these fees do not cover the cost of the service, making a jump would be justified. I'm not an attorney, but that would be my guess.
And also I don't mean to.
No, that's okay, and I was just gonna say, also, I think the fact that we're able to have this robust conversation about different departments and where we might be able to, change things or tweak things, it just emphasizes that, this is a valid conversation to have, so.
And also, some fees are tied to the code, and so again, that would have to mean that the code needs to get updated also.
Yeah.
And I don't know, some of them are ordinance, I don't know.
think we did that.
Most of them are ordinance-based, but we have a couple that are state law-based
Yeah,
as well.
Okay.
so
we'll have to
it's
know
not,
those two.
so obviously it's complicated and
Yeah.
it's not something simple. But I'm going to give you an example in my office. We charge $25 for a tax search.
Mhm.
We've charged $25 for a tax search for a very long time. But over the years, the reason I haven't suggested to increase it is because our technology changed and the amount of time it took to create a tax search greatly decreased.
Yeah.
So I could not justify in my mind that I should charge the customer more just
Sure.
because time had gone.
Sure. Well, and again, that's why having a conversation around
Yeah.
it is really valuable.
Right.
To be able to know that.
Yeah, and I think I also gave you the example of raising the parking ticket violations. As I think I said in one meeting, when the parking tickets used to be $5 for a parking meter violation, people were like, oh, it's me, or I should say not everybody, but a lot of people said, oh, the $5 is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Our parking ticket revenue was much higher. Once it went to $20, it actually went down.
Well, yeah, but it solved a community problem, so I think that's something to balance as well. Because that was what I was thinking of is, parking on the street during a snow emergency, we recently raised that rate as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and $100 is more of a deterrent. People used to say, like, screw it, I don't want to move my car.
right. So,
So we can argue whether the money or the solved problem is more valuable to the
correct.
city.
I don't want people to leave with the impression that if we increase the fees, it means it's going to bring in more revenue. 'Cause
Sure.
sometimes it does not.
Sure, that makes sense.
That's all.
Yeah, I appreciate
That was my point.
Yeah, good. Well, yeah, that's why I want to have a robust discussion about the
Yeah.
fee schedule,
Yeah.
so I appreciate that. So, great. We can kind of figure out where we're gonna get started. We can do that by email. I won't keep everybody in order to do that, but, I appreciate you all. Is there anything else, any additional discussion? Okay.
If I may, sorry.
Don't be sorry, that's what we're here for.
I guess I'll just start with the ask first. So if the committee's agreeable, we may have a MOA, memorandum of agreement, to bring forward to the next council meeting.
Okay.
Just as far as like background. In March, there were two issues that came up in payroll relating to a already adopted, previously approved memorandum of agreement with the firefighters union, the IAFF, relating to release time. There's two separate issues. One of them impacted only one firefighter. There was some, I guess you could say, either misinterpretation and or misapplication. We had a discussion. We've come to an agreement as far as the resolution, but we do believe it requires an MOA, so that's the one we'd be looking to bring forward.
Okay.
The other one, we've also discussed, and we're still finalizing agreement, but I think we will find agreement, and that's more of I think that would fall under a payroll correction category, so that will not require an MOA. But the MOA that we would be looking to bring is something that would, there's really no, for this one, there's not going to be like a monetary cost to it. It's just clarifying because of the difference in interpretations and resolving basically a leave time issue. So
Okay.
there's it's more administrative at this point, because I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, that we have you know, we have an agreement in principle, basically, it's just getting the paperwork done, so, that's kind of what we're looking at.
Can you refresh us on what the original issue
Yep,
was?
well, it covered a couple things, the issue or the original MOA?
Sure, we're
Sure, so,
Maybe that was.
so the original MOA, the release time MOA dealt with when firefighters have to go to training off-site. I believe this most often happens at the fire academy, so this would not be, they're not cadets, they're not new firefighters going to academy, these are existing firefighters going for additional training.
Okay.
Or maintenance training, whatever it may be. In situations where a firefighter has a normally scheduled shift day, and then the next day they would be leaving to, or they would be at training. Their shifts run from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. So that even if they had travel time, they'd be basically leaving directly from shift to go to training. The release time MOA provided some opportunity for them to leave earlier and attend the training.
Okay.
So it was, I think there was safety concerns, right, those kinds of things.
Sure.
The other one is, the other part of it, the main part of it, that would be when you're returning from training, same kind of deal. If you're returning from training and then going directly into a shift, how do we treat those things? So it was something, I think it was about a year ago, I forget the exact date, that went through, so.
Okay.
Yep, we just, so the reason it wasn't on the agenda, just to be clear, is because we're just trying to finalize the language of the MOA, get it approved with the IAFF, and then hopefully if we can accomplish that by Tuesday, we'd like to bring it Tuesday for approval for signature.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Sounds good, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other additional discussion? Another executive session?